People often say betrayal announces itself with red flags, late nights, secret smiles, locked phones. But real betrayal is quieter. It slips into your life wearing familiarity, speaking in the voice you trust most. On a clear October morning in Portland, Oregon, Rachel Monroe believed her life was steady, not perfect, nothing ever is, but stable in the way that matters. She had a modest craftsman home with white trim and a maple tree that flamed red every fall. She had a job she'd worked years to earn at a non-profit focused on housing advocacy. And she had Mark, her husband of 9 years, who kissed her forehead every morning and remembered how she took her coffee. That morning, Mark stood at the kitchen counter tying his tie, navy with thin silver stripes. Rachel watched him from the doorway, mug warming her hands. "You're quiet," he said, glancing up with a smile that had once made her feel chosen. "Just thinking," she replied. He leaned over and brushed a quick kiss against her cheek. "Don't think too hard. Big day for you, right? Board presentation?" She nodded. He knew her schedule by heart, or at least she thought he did. When the door closed behind him, Rachel didn't feel dread. She felt routine, the hum of a dishwasher, the tick of the wall clock, the safe boredom of a life that felt earned. She had no idea it was already unraveling. The first crack came that afternoon, not with drama, but with paperwork. Rachel stayed late at the office, combing through funding allocations for a new housing project. Her phone buzzed, Mark's name lighting up the screen. She smiled before answering. "Hey," she said. His voice was rushed. "I'm heading to a client dinner, probably late." "That's fine," she said. "I'll reheat leftovers." There was a pause, brief but sharp enough to register. "Don't wait up," he added. After the call, Rachel noticed something small and strange. Mark had said client dinner 3 times that week. He used to complain about networking events. Now they seemed constant. She told herself not to overthink it. That night, she fell asleep alone, the other side of the bed, cool and untouched. The second crack came 2 weeks later, in the form of a bank alert. Rachel sat at her desk at home on a Saturday morning, paying bills and planning groceries. When the notification popped up, large withdrawal, $8,500, she blinked, assuming it was an error. They shared accounts. They discussed expenses. Or they used to. She called Mark immediately. "What withdrawal?" he asked, his tone light, almost amused. "Oh, that. Investment opportunity, short term. I meant to tell you." $8,000 isn't short-term conversation, Rachel said, trying to keep her voice calm. "I handled it," he replied. "Trust me." Trust me. The words landed differently than they used to. That evening, Mark was attentive in a way that felt rehearsed. He cooked dinner, poured wine, laughed louder than necessary. He talked about future plans, vacations, renovations, things they'd do once this busy season passes. Rachel smiled and nodded. but something inside her stayed alert, like a muscle refusing to relax. The third crack arrived with a name she didn't recognize. Lena. It appeared in a calendar invite synced to Mark's tablet, which he'd left charging in the living room. Rachel wasn't snooping. She was looking for a recipe. Lunch. Lena. 12:30 p.m.? No last name. No explanation. Rachel stared at the screen longer than she meant to. Her heart didn't race. It slowed. A quiet calculation began, one she didn't remember agreeing to. That night, she asked casually, "Who's Lena?" Mark didn't hesitate. "New consultant. Finance side." "What does she consult on?" "Various things," he said, already turning toward the shower. Various things. The fourth crack came with absence. Mark began missing moments that once anchored their life. Sunday morning hikes, movie nights, her birthday dinner, which he cancelled an hour before with an apology that felt thin. Rachel stopped asking questions that led nowhere. Instead, she started noticing patterns, receipts that didn't add up, a suit she'd never seen before. His phone face down on every surface. She wasn't angry yet. She was gathering information. One evening, after Mark fell asleep, Rachel sat in the living room, lights off, the city glow pressing against the windows. She opened her laptop and logged into their shared financial dashboard. She followed the money, not dramatically, not obsessively, just carefully. That was when she saw it. A new account, opened 3 months earlier, in Mark's name only. The balance was high, too high. Rachel felt something break then, not loudly, but cleanly, the kind of break that changes shape rather than shattering. She closed the laptop and went to bed without waking him. The next morning, she looked at Mark across the breakfast table and realized something that terrified her more than betrayal. He didn't think she'd ever look. The fifth crack was the lie that sealed it. Rachel had a conference in San Francisco scheduled for mid-November. Mark encouraged her to go. "You deserve it," he said. "Take the full week. Don't rush back." She booked the trip, packed, left. But she didn't go to San Francisco. Instead, Rachel checked into a small hotel 3 blocks from her own house. From there, she watched. She watched Mark leave at odd hours. She watched him dress differently, sharper, younger. She watched him smile into his phone in a way he hadn't smiled at her in months. On the third night, she followed him. Nothing cinematic, no rain, no music. Just a quiet street and a restaurant with warm lights spilling onto the sidewalk. Rachel sat across the street, unseen, as Mark walked in, confident, relaxed. Then Lena arrived. She was younger, stylish, familiar in the way intimacy makes people look comfortable in borrowed spaces. They hugged. Not like colleagues. Rachel didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't confront. She took photos. She watched Mark laugh with a woman who didn't know his routines, his flaws, his history. Or maybe she knew all of it and didn't care. That night, alone in the hotel room, Rachel sat on the edge of the bed and let the truth settle. Her husband hadn't just betrayed her heart. He had been using her trust as cover. And whatever Mark thought he was building with his secrets, he'd made one fatal mistake. He underestimated the woman who knew him best. Rachel opened her laptop and began planning. Not revenge, not yet, but clarity. Because karma doesn't always strike fast. Sometimes it waits until the moment it can do the most damage. Rachel Monroe had always believed that anger was loud, raised voices, slammed doors, tears that burned your eyes. But what filled her now was quieter, sharper. It was clarity. From the hotel room, she didn't sleep. She sat by the window with her laptop open, the city breathing below her, and began doing what she did best, organizing chaos into truth. By sunrise, Rachel had a timeline. 3 months ago, the secret account opened. 2 months ago, the client dinners began. 6 weeks ago, the unexplained withdrawals. 3 weeks ago, Lena's name appeared. Tonight, confirmation. Mark hadn't just cheated. He had built an entire second life using Rachel's trust as scaffolding. And trust, she realized, was a powerful thing. When broken, it didn't always explode. Sometimes it turned into leverage. The next morning, Rachel returned home before Mark woke up. She slipped into the house quietly, placed her suitcase by the door as if she'd just returned from the airport, and climbed into bed beside him. He stirred, smiled in his sleep. She watched his face, this man she had loved, defended, believed in, and felt something shift permanently. Not hatred, distance. "You're back early," Mark said when he woke, rubbing his eyes. "Conference ended sooner?" Rachel replied smoothly. "Surprised you?" He kissed her shoulder. "I missed you." The lie didn't even slow his heartbeat. Over the next few days, Rachel became observant rather than reactive. She laughed when appropriate. She asked about his day. She played her role so convincingly that even she was surprised. Meanwhile, she gathered evidence. She copied bank statements, downloaded transaction histories, photographed messages when Mark forgot to delete notifications. She learned that Lena wasn't just a mistress. She was a business partner. Mark had been diverting joint funds into a private startup venture under Lena's name. The account wasn't just secret. It was strategic. Rachel felt a cold respect then, not for his betrayal, but for the audacity. One evening, she met her friend Danielle for coffee, someone who had known her since college. Danielle listened without interrupting, eyes steady. "What are you going to do?" Danielle asked when Rachel finished. "I'm not sure yet," Rachel said honestly, "but I know what I'm not going to do." "Which is?" "I'm not going to confront him without an exit plan." Danielle nodded slowly. "That's the Rachel I know." The following week, Rachel scheduled a consultation with a family law attorney, quietly, efficiently. She didn't cry in the office. She asked questions. She took notes. When she learned that Mark's misuse of joint funds could work against him legally, something inside her settled. This wasn't about revenge. It was about accountability. Mark, unaware, grew bolder. He stopped hiding as carefully. His phone buzzed openly. He dressed for dinners that no longer needed excuses. One night, he casually mentioned Lena by name in conversation, as if normalizing her presence would erase suspicion. Rachel smiled, filed it away. The turning point came on a Thursday evening. Mark announced, "I'm heading out of town tomorrow. Conference, back Sunday." Rachel nodded. "Drive safe." After he left the next morning, she opened his laptop. This time she didn't hesitate. What she found went beyond betrayal. Contracts, emails, a planned transfer, nearly all their savings, scheduled for the following Monday. The money was being moved permanently, offshore, under Lena's business. Rachel's hands trembled, not with fear, but with realization. If she waited, there would be nothing left to fight for. That afternoon, she made 3 decisions. First, she froze the joint accounts, legally, temporarily, with documentation already prepared. Second, she forwarded everything, every email, every record, to her attorney. Third, she booked a one-way flight for Mark's return day, but not for herself. When Mark came home Sunday evening, the house felt different, too quiet. Rachel sat at the dining table, papers neatly stacked, wine untouched. "Hey," Mark said cautiously. "Everything okay?" "Sit down," she replied. He laughed nervously. "What's with the tone?" Rachel slid the first document across the table. "What's this?" he asked. "A bank statement?" Then the second. "And this?" "Your startup agreement." The third. "Your transfer order." Mark's colour drained. "You went through my things?" he snapped, standing. Rachel looked up calmly. "Sit down." Something in her voice made him obey. "I know about Lena," she continued. "I know about the money. I know you plan to leave me with nothing." "That's not—" "Stop," Rachel said quietly. "This is the moment where lies end." Mark's confidence cracked. "You don't understand." "I understand perfectly," she said. "You didn't just betray me. You tried to erase me." Silence stretched. Rachel stood, walked to the door, and opened it. A man stepped inside. "Mark Monroe," the man said, flashing a badge. "I'm serving you notice." Mark stared. "Notice of what?" "Asset investigation, temporary financial injunction." Rachel watched comprehension hit him like cold water. "You froze the accounts?" he whispered. "Yes," she replied. "Before you could steal from me." Mark turned to her, eyes wide. "Rachel, please." She stepped back. "You made choices. Now you live with them." The officer handed over paperwork and left. Mark collapsed into a chair, running his hands through his hair. "You ruined everything." Rachel almost laughed. "No," she said. "I stopped you." That night, Mark packed a bag and left. Not to Lena. Lena, it turned out, had cut contact the moment legal trouble surfaced. The startup vanished overnight. So did her loyalty. Rachel stayed in the house alone, the silence no longer heavy, just clean. Days later, she received a message from an unknown number. "You didn't have to destroy him." Rachel typed back one sentence. "He destroyed himself." She blocked the number. Standing in her kitchen one morning, sunlight warming the counter, Rachel realized something powerful. Karma hadn't struck with drama or violence. It struck with truth, and it wasn't done yet. The morning after Mark left, Rachel Monroe woke up to silence that didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, landing on the spot of the bed where Mark used to sleep. For the first time in months, Rachel didn't reach for her phone to check where he was, what excuse he might offer, or whether she had missed a call that would pull her back into confusion. There was nothing left to explain. She made coffee slowly, savoring the ordinary motions. Life hadn't magically fixed itself overnight, but it had stopped lying to her. 2 days later, the official process began. Rachel sat across from her attorney in a downtown Portland office, documents spread between them like the remains of a storm. The evidence Rachel had collected did exactly what it was meant to do. The court granted her temporary sole control over their remaining assets. Mark's attempt to move the money had been stopped just in time. "He underestimated you," her attorney said. Rachel nodded. "He underestimated the truth." Mark tried calling, then texting, then emailing. At first, his messages were apologetic. "I made mistakes. We can fix this. Please talk to me." When those went unanswered, the tone shifted. "You ruined my career. Lena used me. You turned everyone against me." Rachel didn't respond. She had learned something essential. Closure doesn't come from conversation with the person who betrayed you. It comes from choosing not to re-enter the cycle. Weeks passed. The story Mark had tried to hide became public, not on social media, not in headlines, but in the places that mattered. Financial institutions flagged his actions. Business contacts withdrew quietly. Friends who once praised his ambition stopped returning his calls. Mark wasn't destroyed by Rachel. He was exposed. One afternoon, Rachel ran into Mark's sister at a grocery store. The woman hesitated, then approached. "I didn't know," she said softly. "About the money. About everything." Rachel believed her. "I'm sorry," the sister continued. "For what it's worth, you didn't deserve any of it." "Thank you," Rachel replied, and she meant it. That night, Rachel sat alone on the back porch, wrapped in a sweater, listening to the city settle. She thought about the woman she had been at the beginning of this story, the woman who believed loyalty was protection. She wasn't ashamed of that woman. She honored her. But she wasn't her anymore. The final confrontation came not with anger, but with inevitability. Mark showed up unannounced one evening, standing on the porch like a stranger. He looked thinner, tired, smaller somehow. Rachel opened the door but didn't invite him in. "I just want to talk," he said. "We've done enough of that," she replied. His voice broke. "I lost everything. Rachel studied his face. You lost the illusion that consequences wouldn't reach you? That's cold, he said. No, she corrected. That's honest. He swallowed. Do you ever miss us? Rachel paused, not for him, but for herself. I miss who I thought you were, she said. But I don't miss being deceived. Mark nodded slowly, as if the weight of the truth had finally landed. I guess this is goodbye, he said. It was goodbye the moment you chose to lie, Rachel replied gently. He left without another word. Months later, the divorce was finalized. Rachel kept the house, reclaimed her savings. More importantly, she reclaimed her sense of self. She changed the locks, not because she was afraid, but because she was done. Life moved forward. Rachel accepted a promotion at work. She traveled, not to escape, but to expand. She laughed more freely, slept more deeply, trusted her instincts again. One evening, sitting in a small cafe, a stranger asked if the seat across from her was taken. Rachel smiled and said no, not because she was ready for something new, but because she no longer felt closed off by fear. Karma, she realized, wasn't revenge. It was alignment. It was watching lies collapse under their own weight while you walk away intact. Mark had betrayed her trust, believing it made him powerful. He was wrong. Trust had made Rachel strong, and when it was broken, it didn't break her. It freed her.